So hello everyone, thank you so much for joining in CCSF for All's press conference. My name is Eric Hyun and I am a City College student. I'm also a member of the Student Art Activism Group CCSF Collective and a proud member of CCSF for All Coalition. And this coalition involves students, faculty, and along with, if you look at the logo at the very bottom left, you see the tires say lifelong learning, cultural enrichment, ESL, art, music, and STEM, and that's a reflection of our membership's background. And speaking of backgrounds, the very background of the slide has the Balboa Reservoir, along with the pictures of the students and community members speaking in the front are protesting at the CCSF Heats press conference for the Balboa Reservoir, and you'll be hearing more speakers talk about that later on. I also want to add into more about what this press conference will cover. So it'll be about why in this time of Black Lives Matter are they undermining the African American Studies Department? Why in this time of a global pandemic do they lay off 60 adjunct English as a second language instructors, leaving immigrant students without resources to integrate into the economy? Why in this time of affordable housing crisis do they ignore protecting the college's interests and the huge market rate development across the street on land CCSF has utilized since 1946? And that is in regards to the Balboa Reservoir, which is shown in the background. Why did they decimate the older adults program when the classes were filled to capacity and provided 2,500 older students with an essential foundation for the physical and mental health and well-being? Why did they close the vibrant Fort Mason campus when the cost analysis did not justify it? Why did they make drastic cuts to non-credit departments that serve our disproportionately underserved communities members, despite colleges claiming to close their opportunity equity gaps? Why is the registration system, the entry point for new students, so impossible to navigate? Why is there such a lack of transparency in decision-making that bypasses shared governance policies? And in terms of our programming, it will involve 3 different sections that are split between Q&A sections. So we're again asking press to please submit questions in the chat box, and then we'll be fielding that later on. And for each different section, it's based on various topics. For example, the first section would be an introduction on Supervisor Gordon Moore, and if he's unable to attend, it would be the alternate Lee Levitt, along with a discussion on the Balboa Reservoir. Afterwards, it would be an introduction of the Board of Trustee candidate Anita Martinez, along with an overview of OLAD, along with the African American Studies Department, the Black Student Union demands, along with the needs that the African American Resource Center needs, along with our own COVID support services that are needed. And lastly, we'll be doing an overview about the ESL department, and that's connected to the layoffs recently by the part-time librarians. And then finally, it'll be an overview of the state college issues such as the budget, the class cuts, and finally the community demands. So before we do an introduction on Gordon Moore and talking about WERF, which is the Workforce Education Recovery Fund, we'll be showing various success stories by students who successfully went through City College and their academic journeys and how that led into their fruitful careers. So who we have first is Jessica Cry, who went through BEMA, the Broadcast Electronic Media student, and she ended up being a representative and even an organizer for United Food Commercial Workers.
Hi, thanks for having me. Really excited for this opportunity to shout out City College for all the help I've gotten. I am currently a rep and organizer for United Food Commercial Workers Local 5. I'm also the co-chair of our San Francisco Council Social Justice Committee and the vice chair of our San Francisco Cannabis Oversight Committee. I've also done some work with USCW International because of my experience with the BEMA department, which is where I came from. So I had the opportunity to use and be seen as somebody that is incredibly helpful in my unit because of my experience and the things that I've done. My ability to be able to record, interview, edit, social media, to be basically like one-woman show for media within our union has made me someone that they can look to help communicate with people. Because as things change, you have to look for multiple outlets in order to get information out to people, to organize people, and to also uplift people's voices. So I've always been really proud of being able to say, like, oh, I can edit that, I can record that interview, I can get member testimonials, and have them edited with background audio. I can do it on social media on multiple platforms, all because of my experience with Anita. For me, going to City College and having the opportunity to be in the department was amazing because I'm from the Bay Area. I've lived in San Francisco for over 12 years, and the ability to go to school and work full time was sounding like something that I could never do. But because City College is there, I have the opportunity to work and learn and become somebody that could really be helpful to any place that I go to. As I said, there's been more ways that we're trying to reach out to people, especially more recently with more of the marches that have been going on to, bring attention to social justice that's needed. I feel like this is the time that we should really be investing into our education and our community, and City College is exactly what that is. The training that I've gotten, I feel like I got more one-on-one training from City College than I ever did at any other school that I went to. And I'm fortunate that even after not being at City College anymore, I know that I have the ability to reach out to people that were educators of mine to help get more information, to spread word, and also just to further network and connect. But as I said, with the international union, I was brought on to go and work in different states to help organize because they need the help of their social media and editing and interviewing workers. And I know that I'll have more of those opportunities now as well. And I couldn't be more grateful and the people that had guided me. Shout out to people like Michelle and Jody for always having my back and teaching me things that were the things that I could actually use in real world situations. There's only so much that you can just learn from a book or a YouTube video. Definitely need that interaction between one another in order to grow and develop.
Okay, and with that, I'm hearing that there are audio issues, so then we're going to continue forward with our speakers. I see that we have, it seems like Gordon Moore is unable to attend, but I do see that Lee Lovett is here. So I'm going to ask Lee Lovett if you're able to unmute yourself.
Sure, I'm happy to provide some remarks. And I have a unique role in having worked at City College as a counseling faculty member for 15 years. I am transitioning into a role as a legislative aide in Supervisor Marr's office. So in that perspective, I can share what the Workforce Education and Recovery Fund means for students at City College and for San Francisco. Supervisor Marr decided to sponsor WERF because of how critical San Francisco has these issues connected with workforce that City College helps to provide resources for. And those are classes in the career and technical education programs, but there also are social justice classes, and they are the student support that really helps our diverse community of students to succeed in college and to even have access to college when there are so many barriers that are financial and socioeconomic and also systemic and racial. During this unprecedented health emergency, we've also been confronted with an unprecedented emergency in unemployment. And this is so important since we have lost more workers in the country in the past months than any time since the Great Depression. So in just 5 months, that's 55 million people across the country. In San Francisco, it's been a record 143,856 San Franciscans have either lost their jobs or had their work hours reduced since the shutdown in March. And that actually affects a lot of our students because they have to juggle both trying to go to school and working oftentimes 20, 30, 40 or more hours a week. And a lot of them come from immigrant communities. They are also part of our working families. So, with this economic meltdown, we see a disproportionate impact on our communities of color, and that is in the Mission, the Bayview, Visitation Valley, Chinatown, and other communities here in San Francisco. These are places where the programs at City College really serve a broad array of students in the community, and certainly at the main Ocean campus as well. And specifically, we see that a lot of Black workers are more likely to be out of a job or have lost income or left the labor market altogether. So, when we see the protests and we see all the anxieties, these issues are connected, and City College really kind of provides that glue, but also a platform for, people to have a voice, to develop skills, but also to really be advocates for their communities and to help lift us all up during this really difficult time. The Workforce Education and Training Program should be central to the city's economic recovery strategy. Yes, City College has been on the table with the city's Economic Recovery Task Force, but the day in, day out conversations and the work that's done in the classrooms and around all of that, at City College and beyond, are going to be so important to the ability of every resident who is experiencing this uncertainty, who needs a leg up during this time with massive unemployment, to be able to just lift themselves up and also be able to contribute again to their communities. And City College has been tuition free for residents of San Francisco in the past several years. This free City College program lowers another barrier to access for our communities. So let's work together and advocate for the Workforce Education Recovery Fund so that we support all of our residents, and especially the residents who have been hurt the hardest. And these are very much the same as the students who come and access City College. Let's celebrate the central role that City College plays and will continue to play in our economic recovery. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lee Levitt, for talking about WERF. We also have someone else named Sabrina Dawn discussing it. So Sabrina, would you mind unmuting yourself and talking a bit more about that?
Yes. Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Sabrina. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. My name is Sabrina. I am the HR manager at Kaiming Head Start. We are a Head Start program funded by the federal, state, and the city to provide comprehensive service for children 0 to 5 years old from low-income backgrounds, and also for children with special needs. I'm here to support, show our support for the need of funding for City College, Child Development Department, and also ESL classes, especially in the Chinatown and Ocean campus. Just like many other ECE programs, we rely heavily on City College to provide the class that our employees need. For people to enter the ECE field, many of them have to start with the class through City College. And also many of our teachers actually used to be new immigrants to the country when they first joined Kaiming. So for many of our teachers, including actually our large sub-teacher pool called STEP program, I can say at least 150 of them taking the City College and ESL class was the first step in their lifelong career. For 85% above our teachers, English is their second language. Without the ESL class, they really struggle to find a job, to work as a teacher, struggle to get a degree and to move up in their career ladder. So in order to remain and continuously upgrade their child development permit, which is the requirement for the ECE career, those teachers need to continue taking child development classes. And if they were at if their English level is not up there, they need to continuously taking ESL classes in order to renew their permit to get higher education. Therefore, City College is the place they go, and that's the place they choose, and it's close to their home. It's in their community. So I have so many success stories here at Kaiming, and the partnership between Kaiming and City College has been really strong and really meaningful for our students to continue their life here, their study, and to get a better position. So, and I want to mention also many of our teachers, actually including our site manager, lead teacher, people in the management team, they used to be a parent of our enrolled children at Kaiming, and they used to be a low-income family. They took ELSL class to basically enter the career, and including child development class. They started with a sub teacher, and then a floater, and then assistant teacher, lead teacher, and then move up to site manager, even a management team member. So many of them actually have been staying with us for more than 20 years. Again, because of the convenient location, our teacher were really counting on the child development, the Chinatown campus and the Ocean campus, where they can take the class and get their first permit, upgrade their permits, and continue to be employed at the ECE program, childcare program. So we really need the class to be back, either online or in person, or a mix of both, considering the social distancing, of course. Again, San Francisco needs early childhood education, and the teacher shortage is real. We cannot afford to lose more teachers, especially during this pandemic time. So that's all. Thank you so much for inviting me to this meeting.
Thank you so much, Sabrina, for talking more about WERF and supporting it. We're also having Leon Vung, I apologize, talking more about WERF, and he is an ESL student. So Leon, if you could please unmute yourself and talk more about it.
Oh yeah, sure. So hello everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to come here to share my story. So my name is Leon Vong. So right now I'm working as the Vietnamese teacher at the school districts. So I'm currently working at the Tenaloy Community School. So I'm here to advocate the for the ESL classes, also child development classes that I took long time ago at City College. So in order for me to have my teaching career right now, so I really appreciate the opportunity and also all of the teachers from the ESL classes, non-credit and credits class. It took really long time to finish City College, and also I went to San Francisco State to complete my BA and also teaching credentials. But I want to emphasize that ESL classes at City College is really useful, important, and also practical. So I still remember that I took like career ESL classes before, and that time I just came to the US like a year or year and a half, and from that class I got the opportunity to learn how to be in the interview. They talked about like resumes and cover letter, imagination that's really strange and new for like the new immigrants like me. So that means ESL classes at City College is very practical. They can give you the opportunity to go outside of the real world to use it right away, and also all the ESL classes that I took that helped me to improve my writing skills, reading skills. That's really important. That helped me to move up to like the 4-year college level, and also like getting teaching credentials. That being said, so right now I am a Vietnamese teacher who teach a foreign language. So I really advocate the importance of having language classes, including ESL classes for immigrant students. it's really essential and important. Please keep the class, and then that's really helpful for immigrants, especially for like new immigrants that they come here to study the new language, which just help them, to be able to get the job, to go to like a higher education, to the US. So that's being said, thank you so much for having me again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leon. So it's quite evident that WERF does support students in their academic journeys, and that concludes our segment on WERF, although we will touch upon the videos that unfortunately the audio was not working before we discuss the ESL issues too. So right now we're gonna have Wynn Kaufman speak, and it'll be regarding the Balboa Reservoir. And Wynn Kaufman, are you ready? Okay, so I'm gonna unmute you right now. So just a brief introduction, Wynn Kaufman also was one of the leaders for CCSF Coalition. She's also one of our valued members, along with being an engineering faculty too.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm gonna start with a little bit of a history that might not seem related, but just be patient. In July 2012, City College's accreditor put us on show cause, which was one level short of being closed. The following July, 2013, the accreditor said that they would shut us down by July 2014. During these years, our democratically elected Board of Trustees was disempowered, and we were taken over by the state, which installed a special trustee with extraordinary powers. I called him the STWEP. He canceled the Performing Arts Education Center, which was to be built in the upper Balboa Reservoir, and it was shovel ready. At the same time, he directed his top administrators that he had appointed to start meeting with various city agencies to talk, and the developer, the potential developer, to start talking about the development of the Balboa Reservoir. I hope you can see the dots that I'm trying to connect. Our accreditation crisis is still going on because it was never about accreditation standards. Partly it was about real estate. And so here we are today. Tomorrow, the Board of Supervisors will be voting on various final approvals to allow the Balboa project to go forward. These approvals include the developing agreement, changing it to a special use district, which allows increased heights and higher density. What's going to be built, what's planned to be built is an 1,100 unit, mostly market rate housing project. Now the Balboa Park Station area plan called for an affordable housing project on this parcel. The city's already 140% over its target of market rate housing. It's woefully behind in building affordable units. We do not need more market rate housing. In the Chronicle this morning, President of the Board of Supervisors, Norman Yee, who wants this project to be his legacy, said that the developer had told him that it's not feasible to do affordable housing without also including market rate. But no one actually looked at it. It was a glaring omission in the environmental impact report. This project, the omission being that there was that alternative of 100% affordable housing was not even looked at. This project is going to have devastating impacts on City College. It will limit access to students who must drive without providing them alternative transit options first. Before the pandemic, BART and Muni were already over capacity, and now the whole future of public transit is in question. I say to President Yee, please don't have your legacy be the demise of City College. We do not need to give public land over to private developers, especially at the scandalously discounted price of $11.4 million. This is corporate welfare at its worst. We all need to support City College, not for-profit developers. Please, everybody, call in to the Board of Supervisors meeting tomorrow to tell them to not approve this project. You can find out the information by going to publiclandsforpublicgood.org and click on the Take Action menu item, and it will tell you everything you need to know in order to submit your comments. Thank you. I also want to mention that everything here you see is probably in the press packet. So anybody that needs a link to the press packet, including those wonderful student videos where the audio wasn't coming through, so we can't really show them now, but I encourage you to look at them in the press packet because they really are very inspiring. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Wen, for giving an overview about the Balboa Reservoir and also connecting it to the accreditation crisis too. So who we have next is Stewart Flashman, who will be discussing the EIR, or the Environmental Impact Report. So Stewart, I will be making you the host right now, so you'll be able to screen share. Let me just do that.
Thank you. My name's Stewart Flashman. I'm an attorney. I've been hired by several folks who have filed an appeal of the EIR for the Balboa Reservoir project. And that appeal, as Wynn mentioned, is going to be heard tomorrow afternoon starting at 3 p.m. before the Board of Supervisors. And the appeal has a lot of issues because there are lots of things that were wrong with this EIR. An EIR is supposed to tell the people who are making the decision, which in this case is the Board of Supervisors, what they need to know about the environmental effects of the project. But this EIR doesn't have a lot of the information it needs. One of the main things that's missing, as Wynn mentioned, is it doesn't have an analysis of whether you could build an affordable housing project, and if you could, what would be its impacts? And in fact, if you look at an affordable housing project and ask, what would it be its impacts? They're far less than this project. There are lots of what they call significant and unavoidable impacts that this project has. But in fact, they're not unavoidable because if you did an affordable housing project of 500 units, and we'll hear the next speaker will be about why that's actually very feasible, you wouldn't have all of these impacts. So why are we having this problem? Why aren't these issues being addressed? And I think there are two reasons for this. One is what I would call the top-down syndrome. And that is when people at the top of an organization make the policy, have all of the power, then it's very hard and very threatening for people beneath them to challenge that. In this case, what we have is the mayor, and the past mayors as well, have made policy decisions, and now the planning department is carrying out those policy decisions, even though there's very clear evidence says those policies don't work. So this is important stuff that ought to be in the EIR. It wasn't put in the EIR. I'm going to show you a couple of screens that slides that show what's going on here. So this slide is taken from the housing study that was asked for by Gordon Marr and was presented last week at the Board of Supervisors. And what it shows is how much housing is being built and how much is, quote, in the pipeline. This little circular graph shows the total amount of what's called pipeline units. But bear in mind that this purple area is applications filed. That means these projects haven't gone anywhere. They're still just being developed, looked at. This blue area, 39%, is projects that have been approved but are major multi-phase projects. And that means they can take years and years to actually be built. One of the projects, Mark said, that project was approved in 2011. There are still no completed units in that project. And that project is only 20% affordable, 80% is market rate. The next slide shows what's going on overall in terms of affordable housing. So this shows the RHNA, Regional Housing Needs Allocation, is asking how much housing of different categories should San Francisco be building. And what you can see, it says 12,000 units of above market rate housing, above moderate, 5,000 of moderate, 4,000 of low, and 6,000 of very low. Where are we at now? Well, for the very low, low and moderate, the average, we're at about 37% of where we need to be. For the above moderate, the market rate, the housing department, the planning department said we're at 100%. It's actually 140%. We've got a 40% excess of market rate units when we've got a 60% deficiency in affordable housing. And yet the planning department is continuing to push forward with a project that is 50% market rate housing on this site, when in fact a project that will be 100% affordable is feasible and could greatly assist CCSF in meeting the housing needs of its faculty and staff and students. The other problem with this project to do with transportation, it's based on what's called the Balboa Park Station Area Plan. And that plan calls for everybody to move to taking public transit. But what's happened in the last few months is we've had COVID-19. This is what COVID-19 has done to mobility in San Francisco. I want to ask you to take specific attention to the blue line. This is where the blue line was before we hit COVID-19. Once we went to lockdown, this is what happened with public transit in San Francisco. 80% reduction in transit use. And it's not coming back. When we started the shelter in place, driving started coming back, walking started coming back. Transit use is not coming back because people understand right now transit use is dangerous. You get onto a crowded Muni car or a BART car, that's a dangerous situation to be in. People aren't going to do that. But this project is based on assuming everyone's going to take transit. And the EIR refused to look at whether COVID-19 was going to have any effect on that. That was just totally irresponsible. But that's where we're at right now, and that's what this appeal is about, is saying that we need to switch this off to say that we need to have a change in how things are done. So I'm going to turn this back over to our moderator. Let me see if I can do that here.
I actually was able to reclaim the host, but thank you so much, Stewart, for that.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Stewart. So then some context behind the ERR is because there is an appeal, and part of the appeal is because there are issues regarding the environmental impact report. So leading into the overview about the Balboa Reservoir, the impact of the environmental impact report, it's going to also segue into affordable housing. And we have Tomasita Medell talking about that now. Tomasita, are you ready?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, I could hear you.
We had hoped to have Joseph Smook as our speaking today on the study that he did for affordable housing, but he was unable to make it. Joseph Smook is acknowledged throughout San Francisco as the preeminent expert in searching out available funding resources for building truly affordable housing. Mr. Smook is helping us with our alternate plans and did find that it is possible to build 550 deeply affordable units in the next few years without giving public land over to for-profit private developers who want to build more market rate housing that is definitely not needed now in San Francisco. You don't solve an affordable housing crisis by not building more affordable housing. You don't solve it by building more market rate housing. The PUC is required to sell at full market value. Tomorrow, the Board of Supervisors is being asked to approve a bunch of incredible diversions from and variances from existing codes and requirements. They're changing the San Francisco general plan to accommodate this project instead of making the project accommodate the San Francisco general plan. And they're being asked to waive the requirement for a second appraisal, even though they never made public what is the appraisal of price, because we're just being told, oh, they're getting it for $11 million. And there's a lot in the Mission District that is only 0.3 acres selling for $10 million. And the developers are being given 17 acres of land for only $11 million. So as Joseph Smook said, the fact that this project has come so far through the approval in this form is beyond comprehension. The scheme of privatization without accountability, the confusing of definitions of what is affordable to guarantee higher levels of cash flow to the developer, and the segregation of wealthy and non-wealthy and of owner versus renter all add up to a misuse of public resources and of the public trust. As such, my recommendation is to urge the Board of Supervisors to reject this development proposal and commit to a new development proposal that ensures 100% affordable housing is built at the Balboa Reservoir. And to clarify about tomorrow's speaking, the appeal is the only thing that people will be allowed to speak. And by the way, our attorney is only being given 10 minutes to speak, whereas the other side has 10 minutes for the developers and 10 minutes for the city planning department. So it's already rigged against us. Now, if you want to comment on the selling of this land for this bargain price to the privatizers, then you need to call and write your supervisors today, because any comment that has to do with this, the general development agreement and all the other things that are on the agenda, those after item 38, then tomorrow at the end of the Board of Supervisors meeting, those comments have to be made because they will not be heard tomorrow. Only comments having to do with the environmental impact report will be heard tomorrow. After the supervisors have heard the appeal, and after the supervisors have heard, if they agree to uphold the appeal and send it back to planning for reconsidering of the factors, as including the COVID that has come up and all the other factors that why they should, if they approve, some will be moot and they won't be considering all these giveaways and changes in the code. But if they do not uphold the appeal, if they turn down the appeal, then the items that follow item 38, I believe, they will come up for all these waivers and giveaways. And so after that, there will be public comment at the very end, but it will be too late to affect the vote because it will be after the vote. So please call and write your supervisor today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tomasita. And I see in the chat that Jane Barish shared information on how people could participate in tomorrow's Board of Supervisors meeting. Please do visit the SF government website in order to access the meeting, along with hearing the appeal of the environmental impact report tomorrow. So with that, we're gonna apologize.
How do people access Joseph Smook's, those people who don't have the press packet, how does the general public access Joseph Smook's, the result of his study?
So in the link tree, people do have access to the press packet. And that link tree was sent to everyone and anyone has access to it as well.
Just isn't the time for that. And hopefully, going forward, we can create dedicated streams of funding so that we don't have to consider that. So we have a stable system that's paying for.
So right now we're going to go into the Q&A session. I'm sorry, I apologize for muting you.
No, that was, I don't know who that was. That was somebody. Okay, so yeah, please be careful, everybody, to keep yourselves on mute when you're not speaking. So I'm supposed to moderate the question and answer, and I do see that we have some questions in the chat. One of them, so, and again, I just want to remind everybody that you can put your questions in the chat, especially the press. There was one question about, we do have a fully democratically elected Board of Trustees, but they don't seem to be protecting City College. And so how can we hold them accountable? I'm not sure this is an answerable question, but does anybody want to take that? I see somebody answered in the chat that, well, anyway. Yeah, you'd have to unmute yourself, Tomasita, if you want to answer that.
Well, we're supporting. Please vote for Anita Martinez for Board of Trustees. 2 of the trustees who have been compliant with all this are running for re-election. Do not re-elect the incumbents, and we support Maria Martinez and Aaliyah primarily for the board, and there's a couple of other candidates, but
okay. Anita will be speaking later on in the lineup. Public Lands for Public Good will not be presenting at the Board of Supervisors tomorrow because they will not take any public comment since they already took the public comment while they were in committee. There will be public comment for the EIR hearing at 3 o'clock, and we will be weighing in there. And the last question is, can someone speak to the racist impact of San Francisco's failure to meet its affordable housing allocation? In some way, I think that's just a rhetorical question because it obviously is a racist policy because it will largely affect communities of Black and brown communities. But if anybody has any other answer for that, I think Stewart has his hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, they actually, last week, Gordon Marr had asked the planning department to present on what is going on right now in terms of San Francisco and its need to produce affordable housing. And they presented it last week at the same Land Use and Transportation Committee where this project was discussed. And what the results of that report showed very clearly is that cities' current policies are not doing the job. That we have a lot of the minority community is disproportionately represented in the low income and very low income communities. And as I showed you on the slide earlier, we're nowhere close to meeting the need for low income and very low income housing. And that is tremendously disproportionately affecting the minority community. And the planning department is ignoring that, and which is shameful. And the city administration is ignoring that, which is, again, shameful. We need to have a housing policy that focuses on the needs for those who have been the long-term victims of racism in the city. And that policy hasn't happened yet, and it needs to.
Okay, I think we can go on with our speakers. Who's next?
Everyone. So right now we have Anita Martinez, the Board of Trustees candidate. And we also fully endorse Anita Martinez from CCSF for All due to her work and activism, beginning with the SFSU student strike, along with her experience being part of the Academic Senate for California Community Colleges. So Anita, I will be putting you on spotlight right now, and you'll be able to speak.
Hi, everyone. I'm learning so much from all of you that I want to spend very little time speaking and more time listening. I'm very impressed with all of the speakers who are here today. I want to address two topics. One is about the older adults population. That program was decimated. It was virtually cut out. And the hard part for people who are older adults is that it's possible to take other classes, but there are fees for those classes. For the classes that were offered at City College of San Francisco through the various centers and in various places, those classes were free because they're non-credit, and those are tuition free. The other thing with non-credit classes is you can arrive in San Francisco yesterday and take a non-credit class today. And so a new senior moving in could take those classes right away. The older adult population is increasing steadily throughout California and here in San Francisco. And they are some of the most conscientious voters. They have voted to support almost all the bond issues that City College has asked, and for many of the other things that we all support. So that program really needs to come back. The second thing I want to talk about is ESL. A lot of you may know, but some of you might not, that I was a non-credit ESL teacher at the beginning of my career and retired as a credit ESL teacher. So I have seen the impact of those programs on our students. When I served as vice chancellor in 1991, my task was to unite all of the departments into one comprehensive community colleges and not 9 disparate campuses. It was in response to an accreditation campus recommendation which said either develop 9 complete colleges in all these campuses or become one comprehensive community college. The Board of Trustees looked at that. They made the decision that it would be more fiscally responsible to have one comprehensive community college here in City College of San Francisco. What happened from that is we learned 2 important things. One thing that we learned is that there are more students coming from non-credit into credit classes than from all the high schools in San Francisco. So if we want to see our enrollment increase, non-credit is a good feeder system to credit. When we unified the programs, that resulted in an ESL department that was unified. It became easier for ESL students to transition from non-credit instruction into credit instruction in ESL and then to the rest of the curriculum. So that was one very important thing. The other thing about non-credit is non-credit classes cost less than the revenue they produce, and the revenue has steadily increased. I was looking at a chart produced by, in 2019, produced by, I think, one of the staff at AFT2121, and they talk about the non-credit amount here, but they also identify CDCP amount at $5,457 per FTE, and that is defined as non-credit programs of 2 or more courses to prepare students for employment or to be successful in college level credit. And I wonder who is leading the initiative to create those courses so that we qualify for that kind of enhanced funding at City College. There are a number of vocational ESL classes on the books. I happen to know because I was on the first team who wrote the first manual, and I was on the lead editor on the second one. So there's an abundant curriculum to try to serve that kind of thing, and that's a non-credit. When our new interim chancellor was appointed, I wanted to see where he had worked before, so I looked up his resume, and then I saw the colleges he worked at, and I thought, I don't think those colleges have any non-credit. When I looked them up, I was surprised. They actually have very substantial non-credit programs. So other colleges are moving in this direction, especially toward the non-credit CDCP and non-credit ESL. So I think it's something that we really need to see, that the college moves in that direction. When I'm on the campaign trail, and I'm not going to campaign, one of the things that I've noticed is that there are a number of questions that focus on City College around these particular areas. And so what I and the other candidates are expressing are our views and the information that we have from all of you in terms of educating not only people on the endorsement committees, but also endorsing the people who may have a chance to see those endorsement procedures. Last Friday night, for example, there was a virtual debate that the Harvey Milk and the Young Latinx Democrats sponsored. And there were some of the questions that all of us are concerned of that were brought up at that. So if that video is still up on the Milk Facebook, you might want to look at that. There will be an endorsement process that's ongoing. The Central Committee of the Democratic Party will be interviewing community college candidates on the 22nd of this month. We are busily scurrying to complete, their questionnaires, and I believe those questionnaires are made public for the general public to view, and I believe the meeting is public. So if you want more information and you're interested in that particular process in electing a member of the Board of Trustees, that might be of interest to you. So thank you all for listening. I'm passionate about older adults. I'm passionate about ESL. And I think the next board needs to take steps to restore those classes completely. And I look forward to hearing from all of you. I'm learning a lot today. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Anita, for strongly supporting OLAD along with ESL. I also remember you protesting for the Emergency Bridge Fund, along with your 28 years of working at CCSF and your 40 years of education are very much valued. So right now we're going to actually segue it into the WERF videos because one of them was an ESL student. I would be doing a screen share right now. So in connection to what Anita Martinez was talking about, the value of ESL, Mei Yang is a student who benefited from working at for being a student at City College, taking ESL classes. And I'll just read a little blurb from Mei Yang. and she took ESL classes at CCSF, went on to graduate from nursing to fight on the front lines of the COVID-19 crisis. May also says that other programs at City College supported her, like the child care program available to student parents, the Workforce Education and Recovery Fund, will allow City College to continue serving and supporting students like May, who exemplify what a well-funded community college can do for San Francisco residents. From May Yang's own words, she says that academically, I can really say that City College raised me from a newborn to a grown-up. I'm the first generation to go to college and also the first generation to go into a healthcare profession in my family. I started my learning journey in City College from a level 1 ESL class and worked all the way to be a nursing graduate. And leading into that is also another student named Shayon. And he went through the biotech program at City College and ended up working as a research associate at Sean Zuckerberg BioHub and helped expand Bay Area's COVID-19 testing capacity. He says that the biotech program at City College was the only program he could find in San Francisco that could give him the necessary skills to find his first job in the biosciences. He learned and practiced techniques and classes that he uses day to day in his research, highlighting how relevant the curriculum of the program is. So now we'll go back to our regular programming, which is with Peter Warfield. So Peter, are you still on this call?
I think I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I could hear you.
Okay, shall I go?
Yes, please.
This is Peter Warfield, co-founder of group Equity for Older Students. I'm a former older adult program participant, and we're very concerned about the older adult program being, as Anita Martinez said, decimated. Our group can be reached at Equity for Older Students at protonmail.com. The older adult program has been going for well over 40 years, and including at Fort Mason. But let me speak about OLAD first. Last fall, just in the week before Thanksgiving, the day before registration began, it was announced that there were going to be 288 class cuts, including all but 5 of the older adult program classes. There were 58 classes in the fall program, and there actually had been close to 80 the fall previous. The chancellor's letter in which he announced the cuts talked about 2 major impacts of the cuts. One was on dance, art, programs like that, and the only demographic he mentioned was older adults. The chancellor's letter claimed that low enrollment classes had been cut, and the costs were an issue with respect to why the classes all were cut. But many, if not most, of the OLAD classes had very excellent enrollment over a long time, including oversubscribed classes. So that shouldn't be an issue of enrollment or of cost to the college that should have reimbursements from the state and so on, should have well more than covered the expenses. As time went on, we discovered that there were some real questions about the truthfulness of that chancellor's letter further. The extension classes, the extension program at Fort Mason organized with 2 of the art class teachers that those classes would be provided as a substitute for the previously provided classes at a fee. And so the students enthusiastically signed up. Both of the classes, the sculpture class and the drawing class, the figure sculpture class and the figure drawing class, were fully subscribed. The teachers had checks in hand, and then the administration said, no, you can't go ahead with that. Further contrary indications were that when the supervisors, 7 of whom voted for a $2.7 million funding to replace all of the spring cuts and restore them for the spring semester this year, the chancellor wrote a letter saying, no, don't give us the money. We don't want it. We don't need it. We're not going to use it. So where is the claim about it's about the money or it's about the enrollment? This was simply not the case, as it turned out. And there was a 7-4 vote among the supervisors to fund the cut classes for the spring, but it was not enough to overcome a mayoral veto, which came through, 1 vote short. They needed 8 votes, they got 7. So there was a mayoral veto, and the $2.7 million to replace the spring class cuts was did not happen. We certainly, many of us, consider the tremendous impact on the older adult program, the more than 90% cuts, to be age discrimination and very wrong, and we would like to have the older adult program restored fully, as frankly we would like all the classes that were cut restored. Let me talk about Fort Mason. Fort Mason has basically been shut down. It had also operated in that is to say the City College use of Building B. City College basically has been moving out of that building to basically end the Fort Mason campus. There's also talk about closing another campus in the Tenderloin. I believe it's in the Tenderloin to presumably save money. The City College administration and or trustees seem to have had an eye on getting rid of Fort Mason for some time. In March of 2017, there was a town hall at Fort Mason in which the then interim chancellor came to tell us that they had tried to negotiate with the Fort Mason Foundation, Fort Mason Arts Center, and that it was just too costly, $300,000 a year rent, and their $30 million a year bridge funding from the state was ending. So that $300,000 presumably would be saved in rent, and that would help them with that big gap. Rich Hillis, who at that time was the head of the Fort Mason Foundation that was running the system, said vehemently no. There had been no real negotiations with his group, and that they had basically put out a reminder with a couple of requests, a reminder that in 6 months or so the City College lease on Building B would run out, and that there had been no good faith negotiations at all, no counter offers and so on. In any case, the other thing that they claimed in March 2017 was that there was $3 million cost associated with the Field Act, which requires basically K through 12 buildings to be renovated for earthquake safety, but not things that are not owned by an agency. And also, I believe it does not require if the students are not K to 12. So in any case, that was in 2017. A couple of months later, in June 2017, the Board of Trustees came up with another study. This time, the $3 million renovation cost went to $15 million or so. When I asked at the Board of Trustees at a subsequent meeting, what is your due diligence requirement? How fast do you have to work on this? What milestones do you have to provide in order to convert? They were thunderstruck, it seemed, and their attorney said to them, we can discuss that in closed meeting. Now, pretty much this year, the Fort Mason, by the way, we made a big stink, especially the older adults at Fort Mason, and they dropped it after, basically sometime after June. It simply disappeared.
Oh, excuse me, Peter, just to give like time check, mind closing it in 30 seconds, please?
Sure. Now they want to get rid of, they have gotten rid of Fort Mason under the rubric of a lease discussion. They've moved out all the specialized equipment, or they are in the process of doing so. They have not replaced some of the classes that were in Fort Mason, and basically a very beautiful and a very excellent campus is being closed forever without any clarity as to what the real reasons are, and with really serious questions about whether the finances have been correctly analyzed. We have asked for an audit, an independent audit, to see what that is about. But in the meantime, that's it for the Fort Mason Arts Center campus.
Thank you so much, Peter, for speaking about both the Fort Mason campus along with the older adults program. I do want to lead it into Patricia Nunley. Dr. Patricia Nunley is a child development faculty and also part of the AFT2121 Affirmative Action Team. So Dr. Patricia Nunley, are you present here?
Yes, I am. Can you give me permission to share my screen?
Absolutely, I'll do that right now.
Okay, let me get ready. So my name is Dr. Patricia Nunley, and I am the head of the AFT2121 Affirmative Action Taskforce for Black and Brown faculty. So I am going to, let me pull up a PowerPoint that I would like to use. Okay. Are you able to see my screen?
No, not yet.
No, not yet. Okay. Hold on here. Let me go back. I'm sorry, taking so much time here. Share screen. Okay. Here. All right. Now, is everyone able to see it?
Yes, we are. Thank you so much.
Okay, so let me start. I'm going to give you an isiZulu welcome. isiZulu is a South African language. Sanbanani is hello to the group, and Sa'ubona is hello to you individually. The response to Sa'ubona is Yabo Sa'ubona, which is yes, hello. So Ujani is the next greeting, says, how are you? And then Ingapila says that I am fine. Okay, so I want to take advantage of this time to actually point out that, I'm trying to change slides here, I'm sorry, to point out that yesterday was South Africa's National Women's Day on August 9, 2020. So it's actually perfect for what I want to talk about. I am going to give out a call to different groups of people. First, I'm going to start with Black people, and then I'm going to talk about marginalized people. So South Africa says, for National Women's Day, when you strike a woman, you strike a rock. So an African diaspora sister is being wronged. A rock is being struck. This is a call to my Black sisters in South Africa, a call to my Black sisters in Ghana, Zimbabwe, Botswana, and Nigeria. This is a call to my Black sisters in Cuba, a call to my Black sisters in Haiti and Jamaica, and a call to my Black sisters in London and Paris. It is a call to my Black sisters in Canada, and a call to my Black sisters in the USA, and a call to all of my Black sisters in the African diaspora. Now I want to call out to Black people. We are making good trouble. This is a call to all African Americans. The work of a Black teacher's mind is not mattering. This is a call to Black educators across the globe. A caring teacher is not able to teach you. This is a call to Black students. Microaggressions directed at a Black woman are causing psychic terrorism. This is a call to Black psychologists and sakusheris and healers. A child of God is being mistreated. This is a call to the Black church. A voter who returned her census is not being counted. This is a call to Black politicians. A mama of 2 children is being abused. This is a call to Black mothers. A sister who is a wife is being disrespected. This is a call to Black brothers. A daughter who is someone's child is being bullied. This is a call to Black elders. Who am I talking about? Her name is Dr. Ramona Coates, and she is Black excellence. I'm calling to all African Americans, all Africans, all people across the diaspora. Our sister is being struck. We need your help. So now to all college faculty and higher ed who've been subjected to inequities based on racism. Now I'm going to tell you Dr. Ramona Coates' experience at CCS. Racism, she's African American and she's Black. Anti-Blackness is happening in our campus. Sexism, she is a female, typically in higher education you find males. Genderism. Now, this might sound a little strange, but Dr. Coates is cisgender. If she were not, a whole bunch of people would have gathered for her. This is also about ageism. Dr. Coates is over 50. This is about classism. She is an adjunct professor. She is not full-time. This is about tribalism. In community colleges, there's an attitude toward anyone with a doctorate degree. You become what they call a big fish in a little pond. It's also about cronyism, quid pro quo. And it's also about activism. Dr. Coates has been making good trouble. So you're going to see a video later about this. And AFT2121, we're the Affirmative Action Taskforce for Black and Brown faculty, and we need your support. We must be bold, brave, and courageous and find a way to get in the way. That is what our living ancestor, Congressman John Lewis, said. We have been getting in the way and nothing's happening. So we're calling on you to help us make it happen. So Giabanga, which is thank you, Salagashe means remain well. Those are South African terms. So thank you, we need your help. And I'm over my time, so I'll end right now, but we need your help because it's not just about Dr. Ramona Coates, it's also about people like me. I'm also an African-American faculty member, and there's others. We need your help. I'm gonna stop now, and because I know I'm over time.
And Patricia, you'll need to give the host back to Era.
Oh, I'm able to reclaim it, so it'll be.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay.
So thank you, Dr. Patricia Nunley, and I do see that Dr. Ramona Coates is also in the Zoom. So please do support Dr. Ramona Coates in being the full-time faculty as she so justly deserves. And thank you, Dr. Patricia Nunley, for breaking down the structural racism at City College. So with that, we're going to have student Nikki Hatfield, who is the Black Student Union president, talk more about the BSU demands.
Hi, everyone. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah? All right. Well, let me begin by saying that I'm not hopeful that anything will come out of this conversation. I just want to change the narrative that Black students don't show up. You know, we show up. We just get tired of echoing the same needs that everyone already knows. We have a Google Doc out there. A lot of folks have that Google Doc. I'm speaking on behalf of my peers and our needs and how we can be better supported. And it could be oversimplified to just structural change and sustainability, right? Thank you, Dr. Nunley, for speaking on what you spoke on earlier. Definitely support Dr. Coates. She's been a huge support. But that's a structural change and sustainability looks like funded student positions. Too many students, I heard someone talk about this earlier, too many of us are struggling between work and school. And Black students deserve to have, City College invest in them. During this crisis, we know that Black folks are disproportionately affected. And I don't think that's by accident. I think that's by design, right? And how is the college committed to rectifying harm in regards to Black students, right? It's frustrating for me to speak about the same issues and see nothing change. Black students being underserved is a constant struggle. How many times can we say we don't feel supported? I think every call I've hopped on, I've talked about the same thing. The Black Student Union used to be in a position to provide scholarships. Now our program lacks the support to even hold space. And the fact that the Black Student Union deteriorates every few semesters, really highlights the issue with sustainability in our programs and in Black student leadership. And I think there's just a missed opportunity there. We must acknowledge Black students carry heavy burdens, right? And that is impacting every aspect of their life, which is why I wanted to show up today, because honestly, it's heavy for me to have to talk about these issues. But I also, I was talking to Keli, I was like, if we don't show up, what Black student voice will be there tomorrow? you know? And I just want to be a voice for the voiceless. And I really feel like some of these words are going to be falling on deaf ears. But I'm hopeful that maybe we can continue to work collaboratively. And what this really looks like is funding the African American Resource Center, connecting our programs, providing student positions, paying a livable wage. There's so much lip service, and I'm sorry, I guess when I get older, like, I'll be with the bureaucracy too. I know, like, but right now, everything for me is time sensitive. Like, I hear the most beautiful words from our administrators, but I just would rather a lot of action, you know, in regards to supporting our most vulnerable population. And I don't want anyone to take this, like, personally, like, as an individual, because you are not your job, you know? You are working for an institution that is inherently racist. So if you're under the weight of your position and you got to go through these channels, like, understand that that is the system within itself holding you back, holding us back, and it's just a domino effect. I'm equity driven. So a lot of these issues that we're talking about today aren't in complete alignment with what I'm advocating for, right? And if we just take a moment to contextualize, like, the moment we're in, we can see the circumstances. And it's a no-brainer to invest in Black students. I'm probably over time at this moment, but I just want to say thank you for inviting me to the table. But it's been my experience to be invited to the table and then either shut down or suppressed. And I know a lot of our Black leadership have experienced this as well. And I can't speak for the entire BSU when it comes to folks, but I just want to say that I do see the folks that are putting action behind their words. And because I'm representing BSU, I won't name you because I don't want it to be an endorsement, because I'm not endorsing anyone or lending my voice to be co-opted. I see you, and I will do my part to show up for you as well.
Nikki, can you reintroduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Nikki Hatfield. I'm the Black Student Union president, as well as a second generation San Franciscan Black queer woman, and I'm just happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Nikki, for talking about Black Student Union and your demands. And I do hear you in terms of how are we centering student equity, particularly with people that are Black or the BIPOC community as well. And then leading into that, we are going to have Keli Lord speak. And Keli is from the AFAM Resource Center.
Hi, my name is Keli Lord. I help run the African American Studies Department Resource Center. I don't really want to call it a resource center. It's more like the little back end closet room that we have. I'm advocating mainly because the best way to put it is African Americans are continuously put on the back burner and always left for, we'll discuss it later, we'll deal with it later. The best way I described it to Nikki yesterday is like, if we were on a heart transplant donor list, African American has been on the #1 for the next heart for years, for 400 years. But instead, because of white America and corporate America and systematic racism, other people keep on jumping ahead of us. Other issues keep on jumping ahead of us. And we keep on, like what Nikki was saying, we keep on advocating for the same things over and over again. And we're not ever heard. I've been advocating for more space for the AFAM Resource Center since September of last year. This is pre-pandemic. This is pre-Rona, and yet no one really cared until George Floyd protests started. And then it was like the big hype, like, yeah, we're gonna defund the police. We're gonna do this, WERF that. And then 2 months later, it's like, all right, we got a whole other issues. So then once again, we get pushed back on that heart donor list. When are we finally going to be addressed? Because a lot of people keep on saying, oh, it's disproportionate because of Rona. It's disproportionate because of the pandemic. No, it's been disproportionate since slavery. It's been disproportionate since the disaster. It's been disproportionate since the beginning of time, since when you guys took us from our kingdoms, leaving us in this system that isn't meant for us. Dr. Ramona Coates is a doctor. How many doctors is even at CCSF? Like what Dr. Nunley was saying, just because she's Black, she's a woman, and she has some type of power, she's even suppressed even more. It makes no sense. I love Dr. Torres, but it makes absolutely no sense having a man who is Hispanic run the African American Resource Center. It makes no sense at all. Because if this was a all women's right, it makes no sense with a man running it. This was a queer community, it makes no sense with a straight man running it. So it makes absolutely no sense why we would allow someone else to represent us. Since we've been taken from Africa, we've had somebody else represent us. When can an African American person represent themselves? When can we be actually accounted for? Like what Dr. Nunley said, yeah, we put in our census, but when are we going to actually be accounted for in this government, in this system? I'm just really tired of like repeating the same exact thing and nothing happening. Like exactly what Nikki was explaining. It's just like, I'm a mother, and it's just super annoying saying the same thing, and then you guys get mad at a woman and call us the angry Black woman. But when we talk to you nice, and when we talk to you proper and ask for what is entitled to us as an American citizen, we're not heard. But when we get attitude and we have a little umph in our voice and a little something, then it's like, oh, okay, she's an angry Black woman, we can't deal with her. What makes us angry? What makes us, is it because we are Black? Is it because we can never be treated right? Like, at this point, I'm the angry Black woman. I'm getting frustrated with CCSF. I'm getting frustrated with the government. I'm getting frustrated that I am number, I think like 11 or 12 on this list. And the Black people, everyone says that Black Lives Matter, but look at what number we are on the list. We talked about everything else from Fort Mason to the elderly people, to everybody and their mama. But last but not least, let's talk about the Black people. But yet we've been first on this list since the diaspora. It makes absolutely no sense to me. So before I keep on rambling, someone else can take over. At this point, I'm just frustrated. I'm very frustrated with how the way that we are continuously being treated, continuously on the back burner. Like, when are you guys gonna see that Black lives matter? If all lives matter, why are we continuously on the back? Why are we always on the back with us? Why are we always the last in everything? So that's all I have to say.
Thank you so much, Keli, for speaking passionately. And again, it's what Dr. Patricia Nunley said in terms of it is righteous anger. And I fully appreciate that you and Nikki, along with Dr. Patricia Nunley, are able to fully say what is necessary. And I do want to lead it into also Angela, who is the next speaker, and she'll be talking about the support services too.
Can I just say something really quickly? I want to thank Keli and Nikki and Dr. Nunley for the support. And I want everyone to realize that African American Studies and the Resource Center, but African American Studies Department is 50 years old this year. If our department continues to deteriorate, the next departments that will be hit and are being hit are the rest of the ethnic studies and social justice departments. If we're serious about Black Lives Matter, if we're serious about it, then we should also be serious about Black minds mattering. And when our students can't take a course that will allow them to transfer to their four-year institution, that's putting them on the back burner. That's putting them behind. We have to do more than talk. There has to be change, or we're not serious about Black Lives Matter or Black Minds Matter. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ramona Coates, for tying in Black Minds Matter with Black Lives Matter. I really fully appreciate hearing directly from yourselves what the experiences are and what the actions are needed. I know there are many people that do want to support, but also support in an effective way that could be genuine allies to your goals too. So we have Angela going next, and Angela is from Anak Bayan. Angela, are you able to speak right now?
Yes. Is my mic okay?
Yes, your mic is fine.
Okay, thank you. And I before I start, I just also want to reiterate appreciation. Thank you so much to our past speakers that went before me. It's speaking about the African American Studies Department and the issues you are all going through. And I do agree that we need to put Black folks at the forefront of our struggles, even in City College. So just thank you. So I'll be going into what I'm saying. Hello, everyone again. My name is Angela. I am an up-and-coming third-year student at City College and currently a member of a Filipino organization called Anakbayan San Francisco. ABSF for short is a youth and student organization based here at CCSF aiming to agitate, organize, and mobilize the Filipino diaspora on issues faced by our communities here and in the Philippines while showing up in international solidarity for people's struggles abroad. Today, I will be speaking on the current issues faced by the Filipino community in CCSF, especially under the current COVID crisis. A really big issue I want to highlight is that in the past year, even before the pandemic hit, there have been cuts to the Philippine Studies Department, shrinking it to a point where there are barely to no classes in the department. Even at one point, 3 classes were offered under this department. However, San Francisco has one of the largest populations of Filipinos in the Bay Area, with San Francisco's population being made up about 1/3 of Filipinos. So why is it that in a city with so many Filipinos are we underfunding the Philippine Studies Department that leads to its classes being cut? Recently, the Philippine Studies Department released a video, which I highly recommend everyone to watch, sharing statements from various students who have taken its classes. The students speak on how important and huge of an impact taking these classes have been for them. Some students spoke about how these classes were their first time learning about Filipino and Filipino American history and culture. Many of us know that U.S. history and social study classes fail to explain in depth Black, Indigenous, and people of color's histories fully and correctly. For us Filipino students, taking these classes is a step towards learning and unpacking our complex yet beautiful culture and history of our people's movements, liberating the Philippines from colonialization and imperialism from Spain, Japan, and not surprisingly, the US. However, in the past years, CCSF has been facing challenges of defunding and cutting classes. The Philippine Studies Department has taken a huge hit because of this, and it has undoubtedly affected the students in the worst ways. One cut that has affected the department, students, and myself is the cutting of Tagalog classes. Personally, throughout my whole life, I never had a chance to learn Tagalog, not even in my own home. So when I heard there were Tagalog classes at CCSF, I thought this would be a chance to finally learn my parents' language. However, those Tagalog classes were getting cut last year, forcing the beginners, intermediate, and advanced classes to merge into one, which was difficult not just for the students, but for the professor teaching it. This year, there are no Tagalog classes, and the administration will continue to shrink our department until it's no more. Already, the administration is not transparent about funding and mismanages the funding that is supposed to be going towards our classes. Now, with the current COVID pandemic, it has worsened and intensified these conditions. That is why the Filipino students at CCSF want for these classes to stop being underfunded and cut. We as students realize that right now, it is important to continue sharpening our critical analysis of politics, history, and current events, which are skills learned from the Philippine Studies classes, especially during these times of people's uprising here in the US with the Black Lives Matter movement and Free Palestine movement, as well as international uprisings abroad like those in Philippines. Speaking of which, I want to highlight that while our education here is being extremely underfunded, the US in the month of May this year made a $2 billion arms deal with the fascist president of the Philippines, Duterte, meaning that while the US is not just funding, but also providing weapons and artillery to the Philippine National Police, the PNP, and the Armed Forces of the Philippines, AFP, who are infamous for abusing their powers and murdering innocent civilians and activists. Even a former SF State and CCSF student, Brandon Lee, an environmental activist, was shot in front of his home in the Philippines just last year on August 6th, making 4 days ago his 1-year anniversary since his attempted assassination by the AFP. And he is most certain that that bullet that shot him in his back was funded by our US tax dollars. The Philippines, as I mentioned earlier, was a colony of the US and still is today a semi-colony in which thousands of Filipinos leave their homes every day to get a quote-unquote better education here in the US. Many of them attend colleges like City College to start their medical careers, and today are working as our frontline workers during the COVID pandemic, with 20% of California's nurses being Filipino. However, during this pandemic, both the Philippine and the US governments have the audacity to spend our money, our tax dollars, towards building their militarization and policing of activists and organizers fighting for better livelihoods during these harsh times. Instead of the US budgeting money towards our communities, our frontline workers, our education, for us Filipinos living abroad, it is instead being used to kill our families back in the Philippines. This is not just wrong, this is disgusting and dehumanizing. Imagine what that $2 billion from the arms deal could have gone to in our communities. We as Filipino Americans are voicing our concern and disapproval of the mistreatment of Filipinos here in our home country and our home country, the Philippines. No longer should our money be used for the US military waging wars in South America, Africa, Palestine, Philippines, and elsewhere, but instead, it should go back to the people who need it most here in the US. That is why we demand for more funding for our education, for the Philippine Studies Department here in CCSF, through the means of the Workforce Education and Recovery Fund. With this proposal, it would give funding to CCSF to the 3 highlighted categories that are the workforce development programs, social justice and ethnic studies classes, and student support services. I think this would be a great and a huge benefit for the Filipino community here in City College. If CCSF were to have the Workforce Education and Recovery Fund, no longer would we be worrying about classes from the Philippine Studies Department being cut and maybe even having a certificate for this department. As for medical programs, there would be so much more funding going towards it that many Filipino students are a part of. Even resource centers like Trillia, that serves primarily Filipino students, would finally be getting properly funded, allowing them to provide so much more for its students. Lastly, I just want to say, make our communities, our health, and our education be a priority and not the military. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angela. So Angela's part of Anak Bayan, which is a youth-led organization based in the Philippines dedicated towards spreading national democracy. And I appreciate how you're tying in the solidarity efforts, but also centering the need for the Black community too. So right now we're gonna head into our Q&A session, which is gonna be moderated by Lynn Kaufman.
Hi. So, I mean, you know, the chat has been a little hard to follow, so I'm just going to invite anyone who has a question to unmute yourself and speak up, because I think I may have missed one. Or raise your hand maybe, or I don't know, let's see. Yeah, raise your hand.
But for what topics?
So it'll be towards the African American Studies Department, the Black Student Union demands, along with the information on the Philippines Department, along with Anita Martinez.
Yeah, so just raise your hand if you have a question for any of those speakers. Okay, seeing none.
I have a question.
Okay.
I think it's specifically to, I suppose, the Affirmative Action Team, BSU, along with AFAM Resource Center, along Dr. Ramona Coates. It's how to best support the Black Student Union demands, and also having Dr. Ramona Coates be the full-time faculty member.
Patricia, do you want to answer that, or?
I'm sorry, what was the question again? I'm sorry, sweetheart.
How can we best support our efforts in the Affirmative Action Task Force and the demands of the Black Student Union?
Okay, so we have we'd like for you to sign our open letter. Eric, are you on board? Because what we have, our Affirmative Action Task Force, is actually the solution for this nation. We have a diverse group of people. We have Black women. We have white males, white straight males. We have queer. We have brown people. We have indigenous people. We are such an eclectic group. And so, Eric, I saw you on here somewhere. So, Eric, can you unmute yourself and tell them about the open letter? Also,
he put it in the chat.
We put it in the chat?
Yeah,
okay.
He put it in the chat.
Well,
and there's
then,
a link there.
Okay, so then can you allow us to allow Stephanie to show her clip? And it actually will show you some things that to help you know that this is a righteous cause. Is that possible?
Absolutely. Do you have the link for that?
Stephanie, are you on, sweetheart?
There's a link. I'll put the link in the chat.
Can we actually play it when? She said we
well, just a sec.
Thank you so much. And it will help because we've been on this journey for a while now. And while we have had conversations with Mr. Bogle and also Diana Gonzalez and Clara Starr, and I believe that they want to help us, but it's just not happening. And it's bigger than them is what they're telling us. So that's what we're asking everybody to come and help us. So if the whole world, when I was calling out those different countries, I know people in those countries. Those are educators. I know Black women. So globally, we can get the whole world behind this. So can't City College do what we can get the world to get behind? That's all. So, you ready, Wynn?
Well, I put the link in the chat. Oh, so did Stephanie.
Can we actually look?
Ara, can you do it or not?
Okay, let me try doing that right now.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it would really, really clarify a lot of things because it may seem like this is just about Dr. Ramona Coates, but it is not. And it may seem like it's just about the Black students, but it's not. We're all linked together. So what happens to our students happens to us. And guess what? When you have an African-American faculty member, we are added value because, and we are, regardless of who we teach, every time we do it well. Because guess what? We had to learn the Western ways. We had to learn extra stuff. That whole double way of knowing. I am so good at Western theory, and so is Dr. Coates, but we also know what people of color need. So I want to keep wasting time talking. I want you guys to look at this.
So just to let you know, the audio issues for me, it hasn't been the best, but I would definitely, I hope people could hear it too.
So I actually don't think there is audio on this. So if people can't see it. You know, I'm going to say in the interest of time that if anybody's interested in watching this, and I think everybody should be, it's actually a very well done, that they should go to the link themselves afterward, and we should move on with our program because it is getting late. And there isn't any audio, and there are some people on this without video.
I see. I think we're unable to see it because I had Patricia Nunley, Dr. Patricia Nunley on Spotlight.
Okay. Can you take her off Spotlight and let's go on with our program? I mean, we actually were seeing it, but because there's no audio, I don't think it was very engaging. And I think it's more engaging when people can just go follow the link themselves. And I really hope they will because it's a very engaging video. But for now, let's go on with our program. And I think our next speaker is, who's our next speaker?
And I could also play it towards the end of the program too, just in the interest of time, but then also—
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Apologize, everyone. So it's—
Okay, I think Fani is next, and she'll be speaking about the ESL department.
A question about how to best support Black Student Union. So if Nikki Hatfield or Keli, if you have any answers to that too, how to best support you all?
I just feel like at this point, like at first we were asking for equality, now we're asking for equity. And it's just, like what I stated before, we're tired of being at the back of the bus. We're tired of like repeating like what we need for support and then it's not like necessarily happening. So like it's really hard to even answer that question because it's simple demands. We want a Black representative and we want enough space so that we have more than 3 people in a room. It's like, I don't feel like we're asking for $1 million or, you know, just glorify a statue of just Black people. You know, we're just asking for simple things. So I really don't know how. I don't know, to be completely honest. I just feel like it's super simple. It's really, really easy, but they're making it really hard.
When she talks about the making it hard, for example, in the case of Dr. Coates is also a part-time faculty, so there's some kind of ed code thing that has been getting in the way. And there's also the thing of like, oh my goodness, we can't allow Dr. Coates to jump ahead of the line. There's this seniority line. So if I think about it, if you look at me, an African American, right? At one time there was a law saying that I should be a slave, right? And so if I'm saying, please, please free me, and then you turn around and tell me, well, it's against the law, Patricia, so we can't free you. That's the way it feels. And the thing is, I'm very African-centered, as you see. As African people, it is both and, not either or. We are not asking that you remove someone from the table. We're saying expand the table and allow us to be there. But you got to understand that we haven't been at the table for so long that you are going to have to do some things. So things like the ed code, I don't want to hear it. It's like, okay, fine. We still need to put her in that position because guess what? This is how Black and brown people are connected. The thing is that one of the classes that she created, she literally created a gatekeeper class. And she was so good at it that guess what? San Francisco State hired her to teach that same class. Now, we do offer this class. I think it's, I'm probably getting all the, I don't want to put the wrong titles on it, but I think it's Psych 5. So we do offer it, but guess what? When you take it in that department, it's very difficult for people of color to pass it because they don't use something called reality pedagogy. Remember I said African American faculty, we are added value. So they teach the same class as LAS 5, I think it's so in Latin American studies, right? Over there, guess what? People of color pass. And our colleges running around saying that what they want to do, we need more terminal degrees. Well, guess what? This gatekeeper class, it stops you from moving on to the next level. But we're not even teaching that class this semester. We have 5 of the other one, and we don't have this one. And so I could just go on and on and on. This is an equity issue, but guess what? It's a racist issue, but it's also an anti-Blackness issue because guess what? It is not just white people that have been the roadblocks, also people of color. So again, I'll get on a, start acting like a preacher. So I'm going to do it now.
Okay.
I think this is systematic racism at its best. And these rules and regulations were put in place so that there is no person, especially woman of color, to succeed. So this is a perfect example of a way to dismantle and start dismantling the systematic racism that we're dealing with. Because these laws were literally put here so that we cannot move up on any type of caste system. So if we can just start addressing it here, maybe the government and other people will catch on, but that's what the problem is. It's not just racism, it's in the laws. It's meant for us to fail. So if we need to start manipulating and changing that. So if we can have some type of support in changing the systematic racism, then I mean, I don't think that we're gonna get anywhere because we can keep on advocating it, but they're gonna keep on slamming another policy or law in our face. They're gonna keep on slamming another statistic or whatever in our face. And how many barriers do we have to hop over? So I just think that we need to dismantle it. We need to start figuring out a way to make it truly equal and true equity.
Thank you so much, Keli, and also Dr. Patricia Nunley. I really appreciate how you mentioned how to structurally change everything. in order to center equity, especially when it comes to the Black community. So we're gonna also end the Q&A session. I do see that in the chat, Trillia Hargrove, I believe, who's also part of the Black Student Union, mentioned the Instagram account for Black Student Union. Please do follow them. And you'll also see the list of demands and also be kept up to date with them too. So our next speaker will be Fani Evanakades. Fani, are you on here right now?
Yes, I'm here. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm very glad we're all here fighting together, and we really need to be continuing to do this. My name's Fani Evanakades. I'm an ESL teacher, and I'm here to talk about the ESL department. City College's administration has been laying off hundreds of faculty, cutting classes, and closing campuses. It should be clear that these cuts were planned long before the COVID crisis and are part of a larger plan to turn our community college into a junior college. But this downsizing is happening at exactly the worst time, when we need to be at full capacity to educate and retrain our fellow San Francisco citizens to find new jobs in the post-pandemic economy. The administration made draconian cuts, 289 classes from the schedule last November for spring 2020. In May, they laid off over 250 faculty for fall 2020. That's when about 60% of our non-credit ESL teachers, including me, were laid off. It's devastating for us to lose our jobs and health benefits in the middle of a global pandemic. But we're also mourning the loss of our heartfelt mission, teaching English as a second language. ESL classes are critically important for immigrants so that they can fully participate in the workforce and in our society. Many students start in ESL before they are able to take other classes. Eliminating English language learning for those students prevents them from acquiring more education and thus robs the college of future students as well. Limiting access to English language learning also robs California of the essential workforce necessary to rebuild the economy. By eliminating opportunities for San Francisco's immigrant community, City College is cutting off crucial pathways to education and employment training for low-income people of color from diverse communities. By slashing access and equity for ESL students, City College's administration and Board of Trustees are failing our students. In addition to the drastic class cuts, the registration process offered by our administration for fall 2020 has been woefully inadequate for our students. Up to this point, there has been no in-person registration. For many of our students, language and technology challenges pose insurmountable obstacles, and remote registration is not a viable solution for them. While many teachers and staff have gone to unbelievable lengths to get students registered, we have been unable to bridge the gaping hole left by our administration. We need our administration to step up and provide in-person registration. If they fail to do this, students will be unable to get needed classes, and it will likely lead to a huge loss of enrollment and more class cuts. However, I would like to announce that the ESL department has a new simplified website featuring Spanish and Chinese languages to help students register. It is www.ccsf.edu/ESL. Please spread the word and encourage our ESL students to register for this semester as soon as possible. The CCSF Educational Master Plan and Board of Trustees goals clearly state that City College is a comprehensive community college serving all San Francisco communities. We need to resist the powerful forces that want to downsize our community college into a junior college and deny education and equity and lifelong learning to immigrants and to everyone in San Francisco. There is a lot we can do to save our college before it's too late. Please ask your supervisor and Mayor Breed to support the Workforce Education Recovery Fund, WERF legislation, to provide critical funding for City College. Vote yes on Proposition 15. Also, there are 4 Board of Trustee candidates running to replace the incumbents who have failed us and endangered our beloved community college. Please vote to bring in all new faces on our community college board. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fani. We also have a group of laid off ESL instructors also reading a letter. So I'd like to bring it to that right now. So if the instructors are able to read the letter, please do.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, just a second.
Hey, Mommy. So the instructors will be Katie, Tanaya, Dept, and Leah Gabi.
Yeah, she has like a sixth sense. She knows when I'm unmuted. Okay, so hi, my name is Dept, and we are, as Era said, Tanaya LaFour and Katie Crusoe. We're 3 part-time faculty who've been laid off recently, and we sent the following to the administration and board of trustees. Dear CCSF administration and board of trustees, as you may know, 60 adjunct English as second language ESL instructors, including many of us signing this letter, were suddenly laid off this spring. Although you claim a commitment to equity, recurring class cuts hurt our college and disproportionately target non-credit programs, which largely represent our already underserved community members. Cuts like these don't even make fiscal sense, as the cascading effect results in fewer students now and in the future. A high percentage of our certificate and AA/AS degree earning students need non-credit classes to get their degree. What has happened to our ESL department is just one example, as we've heard today, of the many cuts to credit and non-credit classes across the college that are equally integral to our community. Our students are hit the hardest as they lose their classes, and we, dedicated CCS faculty, lose the jobs and the students we love.
Hi, I'm Tanaya, continuing the letter. We understand that difficult decisions are necessary given the nature of the current crisis. However, COVID-19 must not serve as a scapegoat for continued misalignment of college goals with administrative actions, all carried out behind closed doors. City College was put into and sustained a deepened financial crisis by your decisions, this is to the administration and the Board of Trustees, over the past several years, exacerbated by your hiring of now ex-Chancellor Rocha and troubling lack of transparency around sweeping class and faculty cuts made the past 2 semesters. We believe that our students and our city agree that public education is a public good and that our community college must serve all of our community members and strive to continue to do so. And I will say specifically, we are in solidarity with Black students, Black faculty, Filipino students, and older adult students.
Yes, thank you, Tanaya. Hi, I'm Katie, and I'm going to continue with the letter. We call for change in the form of transparency and communication from you, our current administration. Decisions that weaken the foundational purpose of the college must not be made in a shrouded 11th hour manner. You consistently deny our union and our academic senate ourselves the data needed to make informed decisions, and you consistently make decisions that harm our trajectory as an inclusive community college. The administration has denied information even to the Board of Trustees, thwarting the board's capacity to fulfill their role, and I want everyone to remember their role to check the administration on behalf of the college and to hold you accountable to our mission. So we demand a change of direction on behalf of our city, our students, and ourselves. Articulate publicly what you are doing to preserve the original mission of the college, to serve all of our students and their diversity of needs, and transparently provide us with all the data and rationale used to make these difficult decisions. Why are you not transparent about these decisions? Potentially restoring trust within the college. Why have you not considered cutting proportionately and from the top first? We're in this together, after all. Thanks, everybody.
And we'll just add that that was signed by 23 laid off teachers, plus 64 working and retired teachers, and 18 teachers from other departments signing in solidarity, over 100 total.
Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing that open letter. I do want to lead it into the librarian, Amna Lee. So similar to the ESL instructors, all the part-time librarians were also laid off. Amna Lee, if you're ready, please let me know.
Yes, I'm ready. Hi, my name is Amna Ali. I am one of the adjunct librarians at City College. Recently, we were informed that all adjunct librarian hours have been slashed. And though this is blamed on the budget and the ongoing pandemic, because library buildings are shut down, we do know that over the past 2 years, librarian hours have been steadily reduced, and we have lost the equivalent of 37% FTEF in the last 2 years. Adjunct librarians work as a team with our full-time faculty at the main library and all the downtown, John Adams, Chinatown, North Beach centers as well. We serve credit and non-credit students, and we often have the language skills that are needed. Many of us have been here for a long time and have gained the knowledge and skills that might just be lost with these layoffs. We do the student-facing work, such as connecting them with the library resources, but also with the college services and support that they're often unaware of, such as counseling and veteran services and tutorings and so forth. Our direct contact is also through teaching them instructional workshops, which enhance their literacy skills. The layoffs also show us that the work we do behind the scenes is ignored and undervalued by the administration. We could have expanded and continued this work even when the physical libraries are closed. For example, the service we do on the online chat, ordering books and ebooks, creating research guides, looking into OER materials that will reduce textbook cost burden on the students. And we have also been embedded in online classes. This summer, I was embedded in an English 1A class that needs the additional support. Also, we did all this work over the summer and then were abruptly laid off for the fall. Please hold the CCSF administration accountable for the budget issues, as this leads to the sudden layoffs and class cuts. There needs to be greater transparency and accountability so that the whole college community gets to know what's going on, and then we are not all hurt in the process. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ami. And then we're going to move on to Michael Needham, who will be talking about the budget.
Great, thanks. May I share screen? Is that going to work? It says, Sheen, can you make it possible for me to share, please? Great. My name is Michael Needham. I'm an instructor in the business department here at City College. And let me start my timer. And I'm agreeing with a lot of what I'm hearing, and I haven't heard anything I don't agree with. I'm going to focus on one very specific thing as a faculty member of the budget committee, some observations I have about management within the school. Hopefully you can see this presentation. Now there's a lot of detail here. Are you guys able to see the actual slide?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Looks to me like, okay, well. So some of this I'll be going through quickly. And I just want to start though, let's remember the board are good people because I'm critical of them. I like to make sure it's clear that I believe that they genuinely want to help the school, and they're just working and being compensated by a stipend. They've made some tough calls. They removed the chancellor in the middle of the global health crisis. Again, chancellor might not have been the right choice in the first place, but at least they did do that. And they've clearly, to me, prioritized the hiring of a new CFO. And so there's a lot of good things going on. And they're in a tough position. You know, as a financial person, I always like to make sure it's clear that revenues have to be greater than expenses. And so that's going to be a limiting factor to anything that's done. Still, it hurts to see programs that we know that are important being cut. But clearly bad decisions have been made. The school is in financial trouble and there is no easy solution. I pulled up just now the California Community College's mission statement, and they say the mission and vision is to put students first. So that's California. If we look at City College, they say clearly that a number of things, but bullet point number 4, basic skills, including learning English as a second language and transitional studies. Clearly there as part of the vision. And yet, and some of you have seen this slide before, what this shows is where cuts are being implemented throughout the school. And so I'll just quickly point out that along the x-axis here is what percent of the faculty, what percent of the school's total faculty a department represents, and a ball would be an individual department. And so we can see that ESL, for example, a non-credit department, which represents 13% of faculty, if we look at the y-axis, they have absorbed over 35% of the cuts across the entire school. And so here, clearly, what I see is a shift in the school away from things that is not consistent with the mission of the school. Now, the explanation that's being given is the fact that we have this new funding formula. Well, the funding and they say that we need to focus on completion of certificates and degrees. And yet, the funding formula only provides 1.9% of revenue related to certificates and degrees. And so that raises a question. I'm also going to jump through, and I want to point something else out, which is they're not taking into account the funding formula as far as how it impacts actual revenues for students, not for completion of degrees. They've also, just to pick one example, and I'm going to focus on Fort Mason for the remaining 30 seconds, but it's not because the same logic and criticism doesn't apply to how African American studies is being looked at, how Philippine studies is being looked at, how everything in the school is being looked at. So first thing what we see here is this was presented to the board. It was the rationalization for cutting Fort Mason, and they show a decline in students. And then clearly with, if you're going to cut classes, students will go down. And if you're gonna have a registration system that makes it impossible for students to join in, students are gonna go down. But I wanna point, even aside from that, I wanna point something out here. Look at the decline in FTES. And then there's a bullet point here which says that, so the costs of, on the next slide, excuse me, they show the lease payment for Fort Mason of $408,000. And then look at the center funding, this asterisk here. What they say here is center funding figure is prorated based on FTES proportion. So I'm not going to go into details on this, but as soon as you see prorated, that's a huge alarm as a financial analyst. Notice what they're saying here is that we only get $354,000 for funding a center. And this is an apportionment statement from the state. And I want to point out something. Fort Mason is lumped in with one of our other centers. And right now we are receiving $1,011,000. That number might not be big enough, but we get money for every center in the school. We're getting $1,011,000. Due to the decline in FTES shown on the school's own financial analysis, we will go down into a lower level. So the actual decline in revenue we will get from the state will go from $1,011,000 down to $337,000. So again, I know this is quick. I'm going to make the slides available to everybody, but I just want to point out one example of just bad financial management decision making. Because again, jump back to the slide. What they're saying is we're going to lose $354,000 using a methodology that anybody who knows this stuff knows doesn't make any sense. If you look at what we're actually going to lose from closing Fort Mason, we're going to lose over $600,000. And by the way, that covers more than the lease payment. So again, just one example. My timer is more than up, so I appreciate you taking the time. And again, the same logic applies really to everything. The logic is that there is no financial analysis. The financial management function is not being well run here. We're getting constant surprises on the finance side. The board is addressing this, but my impression is that decisions have been made, and there's a lot here that, that it's great that events like this are happening to put pressure on the school, and it's great that pressure is being put on the state, because ultimately a fundamental cause of this is funding. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Michael, for talking about the budget analysis. And then I do see that someone's asking for your presentation because it was so well done. So please do share it if possible. I do want to bring it to, again, not just the budget issues, but also the overall issues with class cuts. And Tim Kelly, along with Marcus Cruz from AFT2121, will be discussing that now.
Hey, how are you, everybody? Thank you so much for everybody's presentation. Lots been going on. So I'm Tim Kelly. I'm from AFT2121. And I wanted to talk today about the class cuts. And I think the things to remember are that college has said that currently they're going to have about 1,200 FTEF. And they're still, unfortunately, making cuts that seems like it will go below that, even though they budgeted for 1,200. This has shown up in a lot of inequities, but in particular, I really wanted to focus on some of the things happening with non-credit and ESL. So the way non-credit works is somewhat different than credit. They have rolling enrollments. They have, they're registering students in person a lot rather than online. Many of the students have limited English skills and have a hard time navigating some of the computer issues around registration. And all these have gotten in the way and really affected enrollment in non-credit classes. And instead of acting as what has occurred in the COVID crisis, they're kind of pretending like, oh, well, these are just low enrolled classes, so why don't we just try to cut these low enrolled classes? It doesn't really make sense. They haven't made the adjustments to the new realities, and that is just horrible. And what's also happened in the meantime is that people have been, you know, a lot of our faculty, they've lost their health care in the middle of a pandemic. I mean, this is outrageous. And I think a lot of the community as a whole, San Francisco community, would not be supporting these kind of things. They would understand that the non-credit program, particularly programs that are helping immigrant communities here in the city, that that's what the city is about. That's what we talk about as our values. And the administration is going against those community values, which kind of brings us to the vision that a lot of you have talked about as well. Like, what kind of college are we going to be? We want to be a community college that is serving the needs of all the people in our community, especially people who are marginalized, to be able to make a better life for themselves. We need to have a community college, and that's some junior college model. We need to have a college that includes transfer students who are going to go to 4-year schools, are going to be on their way to Berkeley, but we also need to be having English language classes so that a single mother of 2 can go talk to her kids' parents, the teachers of her kids in school, and know what's going on with her child's education. This is the kind of college we need to have. Well, the other thing I really wanted to turn to, and I came up a little bit now with some of the money, and I think Michael gave a great presentation, and he talked about the revenues are not matching what the expenses are. And one of the real critical problems is that the colleges as a whole, in community colleges in California, and education overall in our country is not fully funded enough. This is a reality that we all know, and we need to do something about it. AFT2121, we've been behind WERF. That has been one of our central platforms. So trying to raise money that would address all the different issues that have been spoken about here today. Also, people need to really get active about the Schools and Communities First, which is now on the ballot. It's Prop 15. And in a recent analysis of how much money would come to San Francisco, I did a calculation, and it's about $35 million for the college. $35 million for the college if Schools and Communities First and Prop 15 passes this fall. So people really need to get behind that. There's some concrete things to do. There's also some initiatives on the ballot here. There's a CEO tax here to raise money for the city. And statewide, we've been working with CFT, California Federation of Teachers, on AB 1253, a millionaire's tax, because there is going to be large budget deficits coming from the state. We avoided some of those cuts now, but basically the college is now had to go out and they get what they call deferrals. So basically they're saying, we'll give you the money later, but you need to go out and borrow the money now. And that's happening for community college districts and for K through 12 districts all throughout California. So those are the kind of things that are happening, but at some point or other, the revenues are going to fall short unless we do something about it. And another thing that I think really we need to be thinking about has to do with the taxes on the people who have actually made money during the pandemic. So I want to point out some of these numbers, and it's just so outrageous. It makes my blood boil when I hear these numbers. So while the rest of the society is experiencing this incredible massive unemployment, we're all home, stuck in our houses. While this is all happening, since March 18th, the billionaire class in America.
I'm sorry, is it okay if Marcus would be able to speak now, just to be in the interest of time?
I'll be off in a second.
It's going well. There's nothing negative about it.
I'm sorry, I'm hearing somebody else's voice there.
Okay, you should be able to speak, Tim, if you unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Since March 18th to June 17th this year, billionaires in the United States made $685 billion. Many of them live here, right here in our city. Jeff Bezos, who doesn't live in our city, he made $43 billion during this period of time. And yet we see deficits. We're being asked to cut back on ESL teachers. We're having people's health care being taken away. They can't even have a full-time faculty member for African-American studies after this is the city that had the struggle in San Francisco State to create ethnic studies. They don't have the money for that, yet these people are making billions and billions of dollars. We need to find ways to get revenues from the people who have been making money during this pandemic. It's just not right, and we need to be organizing and working around that. We've been trying to do that at in AFT2121, and I'm gonna give you off to Marcos because I'm getting carried away now, but some of these numbers, they're really outrageous. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tim. Now we have Marcos, who is a student organizer at AFT.
Thank you, Erin. Thank you, Tim. Thanks everyone for sticking around. I'll be really brief. I just wanted to touch a little bit on the class cuts issue, right? As Tim mentioned, and some others have mentioned as well, there were cuts that were already planned before COVID-19 really hit us. And the college was able to figure out a budget with 1,200 FTEF, full-time equivalent faculty. And that's the budget that was passed for.
Oh, Marcos, you're frozen. Hello, Marcos, are you able to hear me? Marcos is frozen right now. Forgive me, but I'm gonna carry on to the next segment, and then hopefully Marcos is able to get back on, and we'll be going back to him. So right now, I want to bring attention to the community demands, and then on the presentation right now. So just very briefly, it's some context behind it is that it was through CCSF Collective, and then we wanted to do community demands addressing the needs from every single person. And the first one is to center BIPOC community, especially when it comes to fulfilling the Black Student Union's demands. And this is all listed on a Google document, which is open for comments, and we try to share it to as many people as possible, especially to student equity groups. But I do hear what you're saying, Keli, in terms of how are we centering the Black students and also putting the Black Student Union's demands first. And I know that Trustee Alex Randolph said that he's interested in speaking about the demands, but I do think it would be best if the BSU demands get addressed first. So Keli, if this is something that you, and I think Trillia is still on the Zoom, if you both want to talk about, or even Kier along with Nikki, about the Black Student Union's demands with Trustee Alex Randolph, I'm all for it. I could support you in the best ways that I can, and I hope everyone else in the Zoom could as well. And this is also part of a petition too. And if you just read through it, it addresses all the other issues that were shared in the Zoom conference. And with that, I would like to bring it back to the Q&A session. So we're going to end it right now. I'm sorry, and then we're going to have 8 calls to action. And then firstly, it's the press packet, and then sending on to the open letter to support AFAM studies. Attend and give public comment at the August 11th Board of Supervisors meeting. Keep up our Reservoir for City College, send a pre-made email, promote non-credit ESL, support WERF, say no to class cuts, and silent community demands. Please do access that link tree, which it's very easy, just click on it and it goes directly to the resources too. And again, please do follow Black Student Union and do email them at blackstudentunioncsf@gmail.com. Or if Keli and Trillia have anything else to add, please do so.
No, I didn't have anything else to add.
Thank you, Keli. So with that, we're going to go into a Q&A session.
Again, I'll ask people to raise their hands because it's been too hard to follow the chat. So if you want to raise your hand and ask a question for any of those speakers, Fani or the ESL teachers or Tim or Marcos or whoever was talking. I don't see any hands up. Oh, I see Dr. Patricia Nunley has her hand up in the video. So okay, go ahead, Patricia.
Thank you. It's more a comment, I guess, or a strategy. That with the twin pandemics, this is for the ESL. That whole issue is so upsetting to me because that again is people of color, and so we got the twin pandemics. We got the COVID-19, and then we have the novel COVID-19 and the classic racism, and so together those twin pandemics are creating a syndemic. And so we're talking again about people of color, and it's like, it's so unfair and it's like very upsetting. So I think in phrasing all of that, we need to remind everybody that disproportionately, once again, people of color are being negatively impacted. You know, those ones that we call essential workers that are really survival workers. So people like me, I do have my class privilege. I get to sit at home and be scary Mary, and then all these people of color go out and shop for me, keep my yard clean, et cetera, et cetera. So I think in phrasing everything, the ESL demands, I think we need to remind people that we are talking about people of color, and I don't mean people that look like my sister twin Win. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Patricia. Okay, do I see any other raised hands? I do not. I think everybody that has stayed here.
See me?
Where?
Harry.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't see that. Go ahead, Harry.
Okay. Just a couple of things. You know, for someone to teach, they need a minimal Canvas training. But unless you have an assignment, you're not able to get that Canvas approval for Canvas training. We've just lost, 250 part-time faculty, and there are other people who are already deprived of that opportunity. So maybe we can broaden the opportunity for former teachers to get the training. So if there is some money coming in and restoring classes, they will be ready for it instead of having to do something at the last minute. Also, since we've lost, I don't know, a third of the part-time faculty, the last wage negotiation prioritized, and it was timely, the full-time faculty, but part-time faculty have been at 86% pro rata for many, many years with no progress whatsoever. And it doesn't mean that they're getting equal pay. So we need to do something to protect and advocate for part-timers in this next round of negotiations, along with everything else that's going on. And Wind, I don't know if you want to say one final word about what you think people can do at the City Hall tomorrow in support of the appeal.
Yeah, I think
the EIR. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry. I'd say that one of the most important things to do is just to show up for the meeting. It really matters when they know that people are watching. And if you can give a comment during the appeal for the EIR, you will not be allowed to give comments if the appeal is denied, and then they go on to take votes for the final approvals. There will be no public comment for that, but you will have an opportunity at 3 o'clock or a little after 3 to do public comment for the appeal. So I really encourage everyone to do that. You can go to publiclandsforpublicgood.org and find out how to do that in the Take Action menu item. So thank you very much. And so I didn't see your hand raise. So if there's anybody else that has a hand raise, I'm not sure I can see it.
I do, Win.
Okay, go ahead. Fonnie, is that you?
No, it's Marilee.
Okay, go ahead, Marilee.
All right, thank you. I wanted to thank Michael Needham. I know that he has impressed so many of us in really his wonderful attempts to help us to understand the way the budget should be approached and looked at. My question for Michael is, I know that there was discussion in the past about getting an independent audit at the college. And I have yet to hear any more discussion relating to that. And at a time when the college just received the 300 and whatever millions of dollars for the for facilities, it's very concerning to me that they're not going to spend that money correctly, or there's going to be some kind of problem around it. So what are the chances of having that independent audit as was discussed previously? Thank you.
I'm actually not current on where they are with the audit. I can tell you though that as a financial professional that there are so many things about the finance side of the way city colleges run that is, forgive the expression, a total shit show. And so it really requires work across the board. I mean, I don't know how you make decisions. You guys are frustrated, and I've had a couple of chats with folks, and boy, it just hurts me so much to see this. And to an organization that I've come to care quite a bit about in the 11 years I've been here. And even an audit, you can always get professional, you know, they're gonna fix some of the accounting stuff, but there are more fundamental issues on how management thinks about things here. And so this is a long journey is the thing I want to comment on that is my area of expertise, which is financial management strategy and planning. With respect to the audit, I would say I would refer you to Simon Hansen. He is head of academic senate and a very aggressive and knowledgeable person, and has really represented faculty well on the budget committee. So a long way of saying I don't know, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Because again, I can't see any hand raised, so if you have a question.
There are also questions in the chat, and I think it's directed towards Michael Needham. It's about the budget. So Angelica from JAD campus, I'm not sure if she's still on the call right now. Oh, Angelica Navarez, would you like to ask your question about the funds?
Oh, hi. Yes, my name is Angelica, and I'm from the John Adams campus. I'm also the vice president. My question is, since we're basically learning online, or most of us, faculty as well, most of us, does the college save any money at all in terms of operational costs? And if so, can that money be used towards resources that we're lacking right now? And again, in the chat, I mentioned that I'm not a financial expert, or I don't have a financial background. So I'm just trying to get the layman terms of everything of what's going on and how student council, the executive council, and our community can help each other, even if it's just making noise or whatever we can realistically do. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think making noise is a good thing. And here again, you know, I've worked, my background's in private industry. And so as things change, you update your view of the world. Well, the school doesn't even have a view of the world. They have not done the most basic things. And so my guess would be that they don't have the capability. And the sad thing is, this is not a hard thing to do. You know, you do it once and it's not right. Meaning a view of the world, a projection, and then you make mistakes, and then you learn from that, and the organization grows over time and becomes better at it. And here, it's just, I just got involved in the budget committee in the last year and a half. It completely, I've said this before, so I apologize if I'm repeating it. It blows my mind how little work has been done. We know as faculty how much work was done on curriculum, for example. There has been so little work done on the finance side. They've allowed things to go on. the board permitted the chancellor to put the financial function under HR for Lord knows what reason, and that is not a critical statement about the individuals involved. But you know, they cannot answer these questions. However, I'll say further that another thing that's going on that's bigger than any potential cost savings, because the faculty are all being paid and there are all kinds of other expenses that stay, is on the state funding side. And so we may lose significant revenues, and it's a complicated, moving thing, but they lack the basic capability to even take a guess at what this thing is going to look like. It's really bad from a financial management perspective. So.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael. There's also a question from Victor, which is, I'm not sure if you want to ask it yourself, but it's about the current Board of Trustees allocating funds.
Sure, yeah. Much earlier when I was hearing some of the students speaking about their centers and their programs being deficient in funding, it struck me that over the last 5-6 years when I've been looking at the budgets, I've never ever seen any allocated funding to any of these student programs or resources. Even some of these essential faculty lines are not really fully funded by the trustees. And all the speak about closing the gap in educational resources to brown and black communities, all the talk about what they want to do for the student centers, I have never seen a single line item anywhere. And just to make sure that I'm not wrong, I wanted to ask the group, because some of you have been at City College and involved a lot longer than I have. Has there ever been a trustee who has really fully supported these ideas, these centers, these students with actual funding in the budget? Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. Do you think anybody from the students that talked about the programs could answer that, or even faculty members?
I don't know the answer specifically to that question, but I know that one of the results of the accreditation crisis is that the trustees have been told not to micromanage. And that I think that if they tried to do something like that, they would be accused of micromanaging. I think that they're negligent in their job duties when they don't set direction and policy, but they've swallowed, well, I hate to say swallowed the Kool-Aid, but sorry, I did. And they listened to the consultants that came in when we were under state takeover, that would be micromanaging. So at this point, our trustees have not, I think, stepped up to the plate to protect our college and protect our resource centers and protect the students. That's my opinion.
Thank you, and I know that Trillia has a comment, and I see Anita next. Trillia, if you'd like to share a comment.
Okay. Hi, I'm Trillia Hargrove, and I am part of the BSU. And I was just, I commented in the chat, but I was just mentioning how when we have these conversations with administration talking about the AFAM, and also just Black student presence at CCSF, there is usually a kind of justification saying that, well, we don't really have the student enrollment. But with that with that in mind, it's really not up to the prospective students to decide that they want to make this institution better and more welcoming. It's really up to the institution. And I said in the chat, if you build it, they will come. And that is why it's up to the people who are here, it would include students like myself, but it really does include the administration and the powers in place to make sure that they are actively being anti-racist, actively being equitable, and actively being welcoming to make this campus more diverse. And yeah, so thank you.
Thank you so much, Trillia. So it seems that students are echoing that there isn't enough attention being brought, especially to Black students in the Black community. And I see that Anita, you wanted to go next. Oh, Anita, if you could unmute yourself, please.
Thank you. Okay, I wanted to comment on two things. Number one, many of the student centers are funded by student activities fees. If there are clubs or like some of the resource centers, in the past, the Associated Students have created those centers out of those student fees, and it's kind of fallen on the students. without having something in a particular part of the overall budget. The second comment that I wanted to make is that the board directs the chancellor. I had a conversation last November when all of salary gate was happening and the class cuts were happening. I asked board members if I could meet with some of them, and I did meet with some of them. And one of the things that I commented on was I've never seen a community college board in any of the community colleges I've worked on in as beat up as they are. And I said, part of that is because you're being beat up for the actions of the chancellor and the senior administration. And I said, you do realize that the chancellor is your employee. You make decisions to hire, evaluate, and fire. And so you need to evaluate your current chancellor to see if he's acting in the way that you as the board would approve. And if he isn't, then you do what you do with any employee who doesn't fit. It's your responsibility to take the logical action. The other thing that happens is because the board directs the chancellor and he directs everybody else, all the rest of the administrative staff, there is a way of getting things done by saying it is a board priority too. And Mr. Chancellor or Mrs. Chancellor or Ms. Chancellor, would you come back with a report or some recommendations or a proposal that we could review so that this board priority can X, Y, Z? And so you're not, the idea about micromanaging is you can't go in and say to the dean, the vice chancellor of instruction, don't cut any classes. But you can say to the chancellor, why are we cutting these classes? What support is there for these cuts? Have you conferred with the department chairs? What are your criteria for cutting? Is it true that you should let classes grow? You can ask a lot of questions as a member of the board, and that's the board's responsibility because the board is elected by the public to be the stewards of City College of San Francisco. And I'm very appreciative that the board did take the action to evaluate the chancellor and terminated his contract, and that they also listened to this last chancellor who said, your administrative chart makes no sense, which I had been telling them since last November. You need to have one of your top senior administrative positions is what is either called a CBO or a CFO, a Chief Budget Finance Officer. And that person really needs to have the background to do that particular job. You need to have a Chief Academic Officer and you need to have a Chief Student Services Officer. The Chief Student Services Officer is critical to keeping all of the things in student services like admissions, registration, financial aid, counseling, going together with what needs to happen. And so this current chancellor has made those recommendations. The board adopted them on the 30th. Those people need to be hired right away. One of the things that I've also said to the board is that what you can do as a cost-saving measure, if you wish, and this is what happened when I was hired as an interim vice chancellor for 9 months.
Anita, do you mind closing out in 5 seconds? And I'm hoping to.
Sure. You can ask current staff who are interested to step into those positions because you don't have a brand new position to pay for. You can ask a dean of academic dean to step into a vice chancellorship. You can ask somebody in student service to step into the vice chancellorship of that if there's that talent around. So that's it. The board has a lot of power. The board has a lot of authority. They need to exercise it.
Thank you so much. So Anita Martinez is again the Board of Trustee candidate, and we're going to end it with Dr. Patricia Nunley for our Q&A session. So Dr. Patricia Nunley, if you have anything else to add.
Yes, there is a report, and I put it in the chat from the California Community Colleges that talks about, and they released it in February of 2020, Black History Month. I'm Black, 12 months, 24/7. So, but they released that report saying that they want to improve educational outcomes for African American students. And yeah, just read the report, because something's wrong with the picture. I think if I got the statistics right, 67% of African American students don't end up with a terminal degree, they do not transfer, they don't get a certificate, and it takes them maybe 6 or 7 years to graduate. And so that's appalling, that's crazy. So just read that report. And so thank you very much. And so please sign on to our open letter. All of us people, we're all connected to this. Black people, brown people, yellow, I use crayons. Everybody, we're all connected. We're all being marginalized. Everybody at San Francisco City College, except our administration. I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much, Dr. Patricia Nunley. And I really appreciate how you focus on how we could all do action. So please do sign on. I see that there are 42 participants here, so please do that as well. And I'd like to end it with a video that was shared on the AFAM Studies Department. And with that, we'll be ending our press conference. And thank you so much, everyone, for staying in and tuning in and listening to what we have to share.
And thank you, Ava, for moderating this. I'm sure it was an exhausting job. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Someone please.
So I noticed that there's no audio. Would people want to read it instead? Or just
Would you like me to read out loud? I'm okay doing that.
Excuse me, Era, are you aware that when you click on share screen that there's a button that says it picks up the audio off of the video, off of your browser?
Oh, no.
There is no audio right now for this.
I know, I'm saying that I would unshare screen and then reshare and look for those buttons on the bottom.
Okay, I could mute all so there won't be any background noise, but then if people want to read it out loud.
Yeah, Eric is going to read it out loud for us, but everyone else would have to mute because we can hear all their sounds.
Okay.
And I'll mute myself.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Patricia Nunley. So I'll be playing the video now.
Thanks. This video does not have any audio. There is a crisis happening in African American studies at CCSF. While other schools are implementing restorative justice policies in response to institutionalized racism, especially in the wake of recent protests. And you can just let it run, Era. It's fine. I'll keep up. CCSF refuses to take action to support Black and brown students. Ironically, as the administration is gutting the programs and classes that support students of color, CCSF's African American Studies Department is celebrating its 50th anniversary. Let's rewind 50 years to where it all began. In 1970, Glenn Nance created the CCSF African American Studies Department as a direct result of the 1968-69 Third World Strike that protested the Eurocentrism and lack of diversity at SFSU. By the early to mid-1990s, the CCSF Ethnic Studies and Social Justice Departments were each awarded one full-time instructor specifically designated for their department. But after 50 years, how far have we really come? Since 2019, the number of classes offerings in African American Studies has been cut in half from 8 to 4. Nearby colleges have up to 14. Remember that full-time position AFAM Studies was given in the 90s? In 2019, when that instructor retired, the administration did away with the only full-time position and have been reluctant to reinstate it. The African American Resource Center lacks basic resources for students such as Wi-Fi. Few people know where it is or what is even offered there, as the administration has dragged its feet after multiple requests by students to promote and support the center. CCSF is also severely lacking in diversity. As of April 2019, CCSF has only 7 African American full-time teaching faculty in the core subject areas, and that's after hiring 4 new tenure-track faculty in the fall of 2018. Full-time and part-time African American instructors make up roughly 3% of the core subject teaching faculty. The administration brags about recently being designated a Hispanic serving institution. This means over 25% of our student body identifies as Hispanic. Yet they've laid off over 60 part-time non-credit ESL instructors and slashed classes in LALS, including a much-needed class, LALS 5. It is a Latin American Latinx Studies statistic course that was specifically designed and taught in a manner to close equity gaps for our Black and Brown students. It is the only one of its kind offered at a community college. Meet Dr. Ramona Coates, the brilliant creator of LALS 5. Dr. Coates has been teaching mostly part-time at CCSF for 13 years. She holds a PhD in sociology and was elected by her peers to be the chair of the AFAM department. The administration forced Dr. Coates to make a difficult choice: teach LALS 5 or continue as chair of the African American Studies department. This is because part-time instructors have a limit on how much they can teach each semester. Pitting the needs of these two departments against each other is just one more way the administration continues to undermine the needs of our students of color. Dr. Coates made the difficult decision to teach LALS 5 and give up the chair position, only to find out later that her chair wouldn't let her teach a class outside her home department of behavioral sciences. LALS 5 was canceled, and Dr. Coates was still denied the AFAM Studies chair position because she is part-time. Interestingly, she has been upgraded to a full-time teaching load 3 times in the last 6 semesters and is regularly on loan to other departments that need her expertise. Clearly, she's in high demand. And yet, even though she has twice applied and made it to the final round of interviews for a full-time position, administration has refused her the position. While this crisis isn't about Dr. Coates specifically, she has found herself at the intersection of the struggles in LALS and African American Studies. Dr. Edgar Torres, the chair of LALS and interim chair of AFAM Studies, has fielded complaints from counselors about how much we need to reinstate LALS 5. He's also been advocating for Dr. Coates to be reinstated as the chair. Students have also been reaching out to share how important Dr. Coates and LALS 5 have been to their education. We quote, "LALS 5 offered me a rare opportunity to be able to apply an academic subject in real time to facts and data. The education and support that I received in Professor Coates' class has given me the tools necessary to better understand and interpret the data that is published on a daily basis in the news. I adore Dr. Coates. What an inspirational woman. Her class isn't easy, but she's so helpful, caring, supportive, and encouraging. I'm not a math person, but after class, I have a new appreciation for stats. Highly recommend. I wish more educators were as amazing, caring, and challenging as Dr. Coates. Thank you, Dr. Coates." Let's fix the crisis at CCSF. Let's acknowledge the racist, anti-Black behaviors that have kept qualified educators like Dr. Coates from tenure-track positions, and institute restorative justice policies, rebuild AFAM Studies course offerings, prioritize the hiring of BIPOC faculty, and fund program and support services for our Black and Brown students. Obviously, this work won't happen overnight, but by hiring Dr. Coates for these positions, she would become a full-time instructor. This would be an immediate step towards remedying the lack of faculty diversity at CCSF. Let's demand the administration put their stated values and goals into action. 1, reinstate LALS 5. 2, reinstate the duly elected chair of AFAM Studies. 3, fully fund and support the AFAM Resource Center, including the hiring of a faculty advisor. Together, we can demand that the administration listen and make some long overdue changes. And we have a link for the Black Student Union Instagram and CCSF for all.
All right, thank you so much, everyone. And with that, we're going to end our press conference. However, I do see that we have a KGO TV transmission and KNTV. So if there are any other questions that you want to ask, please do let us know before we do end this session right now. Beyond that, again, when it comes to the Black Student Union and demands, people have opportunity to give public comment on the Board of Trustees meeting on August 27th. I strongly encourage people to do so. And Dr. Patricia Nunley, I see that your hand is raised. Is that from the previous Q&A?
Yeah, that's previous. It's okay.
Okay, thank you so much. And with that, we're done. Thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of this.
Thank you.
Thank you.